myself, but this is about customizing your social media outposts, and we're going to focus largely on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll touch on YouTube, and Pinterest as well, and a little G+, everything that's on your sheet. This is a very 101 session as far as how to customize. That's mostly what we're going to spend our time doing, is going through and talking about how to make these changes. If you've already done a lot of this, if you know how to change your Facebook profile and change your cover photo, for example, this might be a little too basic for you. So you'll find the cheat sheet useful, but I won't take it personally if you want to go to a different session and take the cheat sheet with you. The cheat sheet, since it will be changing so often, it's available. If I move the mouse, you can actually see on my website, avenuedesignstudios.com/cheat. So that's exactly this information you have here, but I will be updating that periodically, so that will be more relevant in the future. Does anyone not, or have any questions, I should say, about the basics of what we're talking about, what a social media profile is, or what we're customizing? Okay. Some examples. I'm going to have to reload, it's not loading there. This is a Facebook page, as opposed to a Facebook profile, which is your personal profile. And I'll open up my Facebook profile as well. I believe I'm logged in, so there I am. And that's naked picture. That's a giant naked picture. I gotta tell Tom about this. I'll show him the video of how large he was on screen. That's a video of my buddy. He's a musician. The video's launching tomorrow, so I'm promoting it. But the same basic rules apply. You've got your cover photo over here, and your profile picture over here. And Facebook makes it super easy to change these just by clicking as you hover over it, and then you can choose from your existing photos, or upload a photo, or reposition it. Or reposition Tom. No, I can't. That's because Tom provided his image in exactly the right size that we needed for the cover photo, 851 by 315 pixels. So this kind of cheat sheet is very useful when you're going through and you're customizing all of your social media outposts to know, okay, this image right here, this cover photo, should be 851 pixels by 315 pixels. It should be a JPEG, because if you made it a GIF or if you made it a PNG, they would convert it to a JPEG anyway, so you might as well make it a JPEG. And under 100 kilobytes. In this case, that's a very specific set of guidelines for your cover photo. They're not always that specific. Sometimes it's under a certain size or over a certain size for an image. But many of them are that specific, and if you're going to, especially if you're doing this for a business and you want your business to look as professional as possible, these are the best guidelines to follow. So 2 other examples here. Allure Marketing Group. This I want to point out as an interesting example because we have a yellow bar going at the bottom of the cover photo, and with the screen resolution here you can't see the full page. Just scroll. This was the best location, design-wise, to have that yellow band. However, Facebook does something interesting by overlaying a slightly transparent gray 1-pixel bar at the bottom of your image. That kind of attention to detail is important, especially in a business page where you want things to look professional. I had to actually raise that band by 1 pixel so that that gray bar didn't interfere with the design. Profile picture, you'd think you could probably just get away with having one logo that you use on all of your social media outposts. And, for the most part, you probably could, but I have these specific sizes here for all of the different profile outposts. So on Twitter, your profile photo shows up as 240 by 240 pics. On Facebook, you want your profile picture to be 180 by 180 pics. It doesn't show up as 180 by 180 pics. It shows up as 160 by 160 pics. I didn't say this is going to be the most interesting presentation, but it's very useful. But if you went to Facebook and you looked at the image size and you saw 160 by 160 pics, you might be inclined to make your profile image that size, but Facebook actually demands it be 180 by 180 pics, so you have to go back and do that. An advanced tip that is maybe a little more interesting is the custom share preview thumbnail that should be 90 by 90 pics, and that is not something that you put on your profile. That's an image that you create and you actually upload to your website. And you have to add some code to your website to go along with that. But the reason that's important is when you post, let's say, content from your website onto Facebook, it will grab an image from your website. You can choose which image you want to grab. Well, actually, this isn't from our site. This is from a different site. It grabbed this UPMC map image. Grabbing something from the actual Bloomfield website. Let's see. Up here we have a post that we did about the rally and press conference, and we uploaded the image of the flyer, and Facebook grabbed the image of the flyer and used that as the share preview image. And it always looks better when you have a preview image. Anytime you can add an image to content, it draws people's attention.
So how do you add that precisely?
Well, if you were to just, in this case, I'm actually automating that, so that's semi-automated from when I post on the blog. It goes to Facebook, but I'll show you how to do it manually. This is actually loading slowly the page with the content, right? So I want to grab that URL, I just cut that, and then I can go and post that on Facebook. Now that I've posted, I'll just delete the URL. But you see, it automatically grabs that image from the post.
But if you put in another URL, it'll bump this one out, right? Say you want to have.
Well, I would just cancel this one out and refresh it.
I guess, say you wanted to have a link to a post on a blog, as well as an image that's not on the blog. You can only have one.
You can't just choose an image to post with a link. You can choose an image that Facebook finds on the page. So in this case, it says one of two, and it gives me the option of choosing that or that image.
Right.
Or I can choose no thumbnail. But it looks a lot more interesting with a thumbnail. It'll draw more attention.
So how did it choose between the two? Like, did you mark something on the back end to choose just those two items?
Well, in general, Facebook will find any photos on the page. It's not 100% perfect, but it should find any images that are on the page, not photos, but images, and then give you the option of choosing any of them. And that's what it's doing here. But the reason that this image is an option is because of something that I did on the back end, and that is that share preview image, which I consider advanced because that involves creating the image, but also then uploading it to your web server and also putting some code on your website so that Facebook finds that. But the reason that is so important, and I'll cancel that out, the reason that's so important is because here in this case we have another post which has a flyer, and I put an image of the flyer, so I found that. In cases where you don't have an image in the post, and it's been a while since we posted without an image, but there is one down here. We posted about this recreation center meeting, and we didn't have an image for it, so Facebook used the default image. So basically your default image is just whenever you post without an image, that's what will come up. And that works for me as well as anyone else. Obviously I'm an admin on this page, but anyone who takes a link from our website and posts it somewhere on Facebook will have the option by default, if there is no image, of using that image. So just when people are sharing your content, you're giving them something else to share with, which helps them, and it certainly helps you because you want more people to click on your content. And then really, this is advanced. Everything below here in Facebook is slightly advanced because these are page tabs. And this doesn't apply to your personal profile, but this applies to if you're creating tabs like this custom Aromobile tab. these are the different sizes that you will need to create logos in. There's an icon that's 16 by 16 pixels, a logo that's 75 by 75. The page tab image, which is this image here that you're actually seeing, is the 111 by 74 pix image, which is, you know, an odd size for any image. And then the page tab width, when you actually create the tab itself, the width can be 520 pix or 810 pix. Basically what you do with the page tab, you're creating your own app, and in most cases, you're just creating another website that you're basically embedding into Facebook or linking your Facebook tab to this website. So you create your own content, and then you have the ability to share that in these tabs on Facebook. That's basically it about Facebook. Does anyone have any questions about? Yes?
I do have a question. It might be kind of related to her question.
Sure.
For example, when I post a new blog post on Facebook, you know, I paste the link and then all the pictures, you know, flutter through for the thumbnails.
Right.
But it doesn't show pictures from my current blog post. It's
Okay.
always pictures. Am I like copying the wrong, like, what's permalink on the, like, I'm a new blogger, so I don't know.
Actually, that is related to our question. It's an excellent question. Let's see. I'll go back to one of those articles. So the permalink is the URL. The URL is the address up here in the address bar. That whole thing is the URL. And the permalink is a term that someone devised to mean a specific link to a specific article. I believe the reason they called it a permalink is that it's supposed to be permanent. So even though blogs are time-based, and once you post something, a few days later it might not be relevant, and you know your blog posts from several years ago probably aren't being read very often, but they still have a permanent link that will always post to them. So this URL up here is a permanent link. You have the date, and then you have the name, title of the post. That's a permanent link that will always post here as long as I keep that web server up. And so that's what you want to cut and paste. If you're cutting and pasting just the homepage URL of your blog, then you might be getting all kinds of images. And that which images you're getting depends on how your code is written and how Facebook interprets that.
Okay, so when I do post the new blog post on Facebook, I should use the permalink.
Oh yeah, use the permalink if you're blogging, if you're posting and linking to that specific article.
Okay.
Right.
And then the pictures from that.
Should appear, and if they don't, I have some business cards here. Contact me.
Okay.
It might just be a problem with your code, but if you're not posting the permalink, then that's probably your fix right there. So I'll close out Facebook. We can go back if anyone thinks of any other questions.
I do actually have another question.
Go for it.
Like when I started my, I have an Etsy shop. That's what started my business Facebook page, the blogging, etc.
Okay.
And I had a woman design me like an Etsy shop banner and accessories, I'll call them. And so I took the one, she titled it Facebook Avatar, and I posted that as my profile picture.
Right.
Well, it doesn't fit in the box, and I've tried to resize it,
Right.
but it won't work. So is it because like maybe that image is what it is and I can't resize it, or?
You can't
If you
resize
want
it.
to go to my page, you can. and
Yeah,
see.
let's do that.
It's Party Paper Scissors. Yeah,
Is this your Facebook page or your?
it's my business page.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's
I'm
Facebook.
sorry, it's facebook.com/partypaperscissors.
Party paper scissors. Okay, I see. So this image is actually a full-size image, right? But it gets cut off.
And I've tried to resize it using, the free websites, whatever. I'm so not tech savvy, but and it would resize it, but then when I would reapply
Right.
it wouldn't work.
Because Facebook is making it into a square, and it's not square, it's more rectangular. So rather than just shrink it down and then have extra space on the top or bottom or both, Facebook is cropping it so that it's a square, because someone tested and found that most people prefer that to resizing, right? So In this case, what I would do is, using one of those free tools, just resize it, but then add some space at the top and bottom.
Okay.
So you'd want to resize it to 180 by 180 pixels, and then, or resize it, to 180 pixels wide, and then add some space at the top and bottom to make it 180 pixels high as well. And that space could be white, or you could use any of these colors,
Okay.
and that way Facebook won't have to do any cropping, and then it'll be the exact image that you want.
Okay.
And that's actually an excellent question, because that's why I like to stick to these guidelines specifically, because that way I don't have to rely on Facebook or Twitter or anyone messing with my logo, messing with my picture. Even when I use a picture of me, like on my personal page, this is that's just so funny that Tom's giant and naked. That's actually DJ Lunchbox, who's in the podcasting session right now. I actually cropped that in Photoshop to be square rather than take it into Facebook and use it as on Facebook, because then once I have it cropped square, then I can use that on Facebook. I can use that on, if I want to use the same image on Twitter, on Pinterest, whatever, and it's consistent. And part of what I do, I'm a web designer and communication designer, and part of what I do for my clients is maintaining a consistent brand image. So anywhere where I can be as consistent as possible, I am. Yeah, it's not that important, especially for a personal profile page, but that's kind of the best practice that I want to talk about. So, the other one is Twitter. I can get that right. Scrolling's not. There we go. Same basic ideas. You have your profile picture. In this case, it's 240 pics by 240 pics. What everyone here might not be aware of is that Twitter actually has two different layouts, kind of like how Facebook keeps updating their layouts, and they came out with timeline some time ago, and some people were able to opt in early, and then everyone had to opt in later. Well, Facebook or Twitter is doing the same thing. I don't know if there's any plans to make it permanent, that everyone has to move to this new layout where you have your profile avatar as well as your header image. And this is the old layout here where you just have your avatar here. But right now you have a choice. And so in some cases we're using the old, in some cases this is still the old, and I'm actually going to switch this one to the new and show you how that's done. Unlike Facebook, which has a very, what's called Ajax-y interface where you just hover over something and it'll give you the option to change it. On Twitter you have to actually go do it the old-fashioned way and go into your settings. One thing I want to point out, and this is really prevalent on my site here, is that Twitter will round the corners of your avatar. So don't do anything where you have detailed information at the corners of your logo. One really good example is this Bloomfield Now icon. You see when I move it, you can see that there's white space around the actual logo. Originally, I made the logo the full 240 pics by 240 pics without any border. But when it rounded the corners, then the corner of that B and the D and the M and the period here were all rounded. So take that into account. In most cases, it probably won't be an issue, and here it was because I wanted to use as much of the space as I could. So I included that as a note in the cheat sheet. Your header image is another odd image size that you'll probably never see anywhere else, 1252 by 626 pixels. Less than or equal to 5 megabytes, 5 megabytes max. Most of these images have a maximum size that you probably aren't going to be creating anything that's 5 megabytes in size and trying to upload that, but it will let you know that that's too big. In the case of Twitter, though, you don't. That's the preferred size, but in some cases you might have an image that you want to use that isn't actually that big. And in this case, for Allura, we really wanted to use this photograph that we had gotten from Italy that is of one of their wineries that they import wine from, but we actually didn't have it in that size, so I uploaded it at a smaller size. And it looks fine on some screens on like an iPad 2. It might be smaller than optimal, and later on I'd like to get a larger photo and optimize it. But for now, like I said, these are guidelines. This is kind of what you're aiming for, but you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes you can rely on the browser to resize, or not the browser to resize, but the program to resize the photo for you. Background also has to be less than or equal to 800K, but as far as a size for the background, I haven't been able to identify any size limits. And by background image, I have to have it in 800 by 600 resolution for this presentation, but this blue that you see here is the background image. And this yellow that you see here is the background image. And actually, this is a great argument for my personal philosophy of not using anything too detailed as a background image on your Twitter profile, because you can't see any of it. All you can see is a color here, and that's why these two sites just use a color. Here's an example of a site that actually has an image in the background. There's a frog in there. And I'm going to view the background image so you can see what it looks like. That's not fair. I might not even be able to view the background image because the resolution is so small, but you can kind of see at the bottom, that's the frog's eye. And the problem is, this background image is ideal for certain screen resolutions. Well, it's ideal really for only one screen resolution, and for every other screen resolution it's slightly less ideal. When you're at 800 by 600, it doesn't even work because, you know, when I first go, I can't even see what I'm looking at. Even the name, even the tagline for the company is completely covered up. So this is a good example for why to not get too detailed in your background image. I like to either use a flat color or something that's just very graphic and abstract. And here, in the case of Bloomfield, I did use a very abstract graphic. Now this looks at least more, you can tell what it is on a higher screen resolution. It's just a graphic though, so it doesn't really matter that it's severely cut off here because it's just decoration. And here's where you go up here to make these changes. You go to your settings, and I'm actually logged into Bloomfield now. And to change your profile picture, you actually go to Profile. And this is where you would change your photo and your other information. To change everything else, you go to Design. And when I was talking about background images being graphic and abstract, these are the background images that Twitter provides to you by default. And they're all graphic and abstract. None of them have any information that, if the majority of the image was cut off, wouldn't need to be seen. You know, you can crop these in any way, and it's still, you know, a colorful, abstract image. So I recommend, if you're doing your own, and if you are doing this for your business, I recommend doing something that's a little more personal to your business, but keeping it graphic. This is where you would change the background, and there used to be only one option really. All Twitter profiles would have a left-aligned background. And what that means is that when you upload a background image, it starts here. Wherever the left side of your image is, starts right here and goes as far as the image is wide. And then if you wanted it to appear seamless, you would need to create a background image with a certain color, and then choose that same color as your background color. Like if I chose or changed this to white, well, that, you know, kind of messes up my design there, because this design is meant to be on a background color of that specific green. And for anyone out there who is wondering why that's not a transparent PSD, that's because I didn't have that available to me. But you can also choose the link color, which appear in your profile over here. For example, these are all the, you know, I chose that red color that matches our profile, or our logo red. And you now even have the ability to choose the overlay, which unfortunately at this resolution you really can't see it because it's too small and I have to scroll just to see the full width of the page. But there is a color overlay over all of the content here. If we were to view this at a higher resolution, you would see that the overlay ends, and then the full color of the background image is viewable on either side of the content. And you can choose what color overlay you want, whichever works best with your design. Well, you could choose black and white, so white is the default, but in some cases you might be doing a darker kind of theme. And like I said, it used to be the case where all Twitter profile images or background images were aligned left, but now you actually have the choice to align them center or right. So I have this aligned center. If I align left, this is where my image begins, and then it just continues on to the right. If I align center, then it's aligned in the center of the page, and obviously right is the opposite of left. So that gives you some options to play with when you're designing your page. Again, when you design your page, please view it on a higher resolution than this so you can actually see what you're doing. But those are the options to work with.
And if you could speak to that for a second. So we're designing, each of us, on our own computers. What are the range we should try to look at in terms of understanding how others might see it?
I think I usually go up to 1920 pixels wide, but it really, in my personal philosophy, it shouldn't be an issue because it should be something that's so graphic that is viewable at any size, even if it's completely cropped, even on a screen like this. And I really am proud of this example because, the fact that you can't even tell what that background image is doesn't really matter. It still has some of the flavor of the brand, and the colors are important. But go to the highest resolution that you have on your screen. If you were to Google screen resolutions, there's a list of common resolutions on Wikipedia. And this will tell you the percentage of users, oops, is this the right thing? This is the resolutions on different devices. Percentage screen resolution. There, this is what I'm looking for. Browser display statistics on the W3 Schools site. And this will actually show you by year the percentage of people using different resolutions. And in 2012, 85% of people were using a higher resolution than 1024 by 768. So you can click on the higher link and it takes you to a breakdown of the percentage of higher. It seems the most popular is this 1366 by 768. But this right here, this 1920 by 1200, I try to design up to that. If anyone's using a screen that's higher resolution than 1920 by 1200, well, let's put it this way, they're used to seeing websites that don't look too great on their screen. So, they're going to be understanding if your website doesn't maximize on that resolution. In the case where I am using an image as a photo as a background image, or in the case of a site like Bill Peduto's site, where we are using a giant image, these might actually be, it's been a long time since I actually designed this, let me see. Yeah, the dimensions are 1920 pixels wide. So that image will take up the full width of the browser. And actually, the full width of the browser isn't even going to be 1920 because you have the scroll bar on the side as well there. So that's going to take up the full width of the browser on anyone's computer that is up to 1920 pixels resolution wide. Anyone, like I said, who's using a screen size larger than that is used to seeing things not optimized. So any other questions about customizing your Twitter account, your Twitter profile? Oh, what I was going to do is actually show you how to change from one profile to the next, or from the old profile to the new, by simply coming down here and the background is this background here, but the header is that part at the top that we saw. I currently don't have a header on that profile, and what I'm actually going to do is open the profile up in a new tab so we can compare them back and forth. So this is what that profile looks like now. And when I change header, I have an image on the desktop. And it's not optimally sized, it's actually just the header image that I used on the Facebook, or that one of our staff members used on the Facebook page. I'll just move around, how to center it, and save. And now, when I go to view my profile page, it's the new profile layout, where I have my avatar in front of the image. And I really don't want to keep it like that because I think that image is a little too busy. When Twitter first moved to this new layout, a lot of people were recommending making your image dark, or at least the bottom of the image dark, but actually what Twitter does is it lays a gradient on top of the image. So in this case, if it didn't, it would be really busy at the bottom of that image, and you might not be able to read that text very easily. Even with the gradient, it's not the greatest image, but it does add a dark gradient at the bottom to make the text more readable. But here's the thing that is so interesting. I can actually go back to the old profile. You can't do that with, or you couldn't do that with Timeline, for example, when it was still opt-in. If you switched over to Timeline, you were stuck with Timeline. You couldn't go back. Here, you just remove the header image, and then you're back on the old profile. So you really do have a choice of which profile layout you want to use. One other thing I want to mention is that when you do switch over to the new profile image, it does another thing which may or may not be good for your profile or your business. It also adds your last 6 images. And when I first switched over Allure Marketing to this new layout, I had no images, and it was just blank spots, and I thought that looked pretty bad, so I had to quickly go and upload a bunch of images, and you can't just upload images to Twitter, you actually have to tweet them out.
Okay, so it's the last 6 photos you tweeted.
Right, so
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to be on this homepage here. Yeah, here it is. I had to tweet a bunch of pictures of wine. I mean, it didn't hurt anything. You know, one thing that about Twitter is that Twitter is more forgiving as far as the number of tweets you put out. It's better to go over than under because people see Twitter asynchronously, and you know, if you're tweeting 20 times a day and people aren't checking Twitter that often, they're not going to see 20 tweets. Whereas if you're putting 20 updates on Facebook, when mom and dad go and check Facebook, or your friends who don't, you know, use social media that often go and check Facebook, and they see those 20 posts from you, they're actually going to be 20 posts, or maybe, you know, somewhere less than 20 posts, but a lot of posts in their timeline. And, you know, they might find that's a little too much. So I find that Twitter's a little more forgiving as far as over-posting.
Is there a way to link Twitter to like a Flickr page, or no? There's no sort of auto photo.
There are ways to like tweet when you upload a new Flickr. Is that what you mean? Like if you upload a new photo to Flickr?
I guess I'm thinking of right now our Flickr page is not really integrated well into our other sites. And
Right.
just maybe it'd be nice if there was a way to, if I auto post to, if I post to Flickr to auto post to my other sites, including Twitter.
I don't know if there's a way to have it automatically post, but there are certainly options to click from within your Flickr account
And tweet.
and promote that, right? So it might be as simple as clicking a button once you set up your Twitter account with Flickr, but there probably is, even if it's not in the official Twitter offering on their site, it's probably a plugin somewhere to automate it. I'm actually doing a session at 2 o'clock on automation, and I talk a little bit about why you might not want to automate everything, completely automate. I'm a big fan of semi-automation.
So what do you make of the new design? Do you feel like it's, if you want people to focus on your images more than your tweets, it's the way to go?
Well, I don't think that Twitter profiles have ever been a really big deal because most people are seeing your tweets in their page. Whether they're using twitter.com, like when I go, I'm logged in as Bloomfield Development Corporation right now, but these are the tweets that I see of people that I'm subscribed to. And unless I actually click on them, and still I'd have to click twice to even get to their actual profile page. So, unlike Facebook, where people are, I think, more likely to see your page, although Facebook kind of works the same way, but the big difference is Twitter has relied heavily on third-party tools since the early days, and I use a tool called Hootsuite, which shows me my streams, and I have them categorized by the different accounts that I'm managing. And this is how I'm almost always viewing Twitter. I'm rarely going to someone's profile page unless I'm really interested in seeing more about them. Because, like I said, it takes 2 clicks, and if I click once, I usually just get the information I need. I can even link to or see their bio and their URL. Although in this resolution, again, I can't actually move this high enough to see Bill's URL, but it's in there. So I generally don't even need to go onto a profile page. But however, that's not to say that it's not important to set it up. It's kind of a set it and forget it kind of thing. People will, especially initially, when they want to know more about you, they will often click through to your profile page. And so if it's for a business, you do want it to look professional.
Is there any way to get the square icon not on it? If you go back to the Allura one, like
Okay.
the yellow square is right in the middle of the picture of the...
Oh, no. If you're going to switch to the new profile layout, you're going to have your icon, your avatar, right in the middle of your header.
With the text over it. There's no way of just having the photo. So if you're looking for a photo, you want something kind of in the top 2/3
Right.
to be kind of...
You're going to have text over the bottom. And see, this works better than the one I uploaded to the Bloomfield account because it's harder to see on the screen here, but it's all just greenery down here and grass. And so with the gradient over top of it, it makes the text very readable. But yes, you cannot get rid of it.
Okay.
We have about 15 minutes, so I'm moving on to YouTube. Again, if you still have questions about Facebook and Twitter, we can go back. I just want to cover the basics here. YouTube, Pinterest, Google have less that you can do to customize your account, with the exception of having a brand channel. And that's if you are a YouTube partner. If you are using YouTube heavily, if you are iJustine or someone even remotely like iJustine, or you have a lot of views to your videos, you can apply to be a brand partner or a partner with YouTube, and they will put ads on your page, and you can actually start to make money that way. When you do that, you can really customize to an advanced degree, and I'll show you iJustine's site here. She has even customized the buttons on her page, which, I mean, there's no other social media account that lets you do that kind of customization. This is really advanced and something to go for if you have the opportunity, if you are trying to make money and have a professional YouTube account. Another one is Barack Obama. I mean, it's not just because he's president that he gets this custom treatment. Everyone who is a partner can do things like this. He just also happens to have a very good designer who made it look really nice. But for the rest of us, who are just using YouTube occasionally, and certainly Bill, I don't think, can make money off of his YouTube account. There's probably a law against that as a politician. The options are limited to having an avatar and having a background image. Even the background image is more limited than what we're used to with, say, Twitter. The background image is centered. You don't get to choose. So, for example, with Bill's account, you can't see it on this resolution. I can't show it to you, but that blue is part of the background image, and there's stars on either side. Same rules apply. Try to keep it something graphic and abstract. And just remember that it will be centered. The way YouTube now does the avatar is slightly differently than it used to. That's why I don't even have a size up there like I do with other profiles. Because it used to take your avatar, or let you choose your avatar from a video. Now, at least on my page, it's taking my avatar from my Google Plus account because Google owns YouTube. So here's me, and if I click channel settings, you'll see it's very limited. I can choose a background color and I can choose a file. And in my profile, my info and settings profile, it says from your Google profile. So I can edit that, but it's going to take me to my Google Plus profile where I can choose which image I want to use. So really the answer to what size should your YouTube avatar be is what size should your Google Plus avatar be, which is down here, 250 pixels by 250 pixels. And then there's also the banner image has a specific size. I'm not even going to go into Google Plus right now because I've never customized a Google Plus profile myself, but I did grab the information for you so that if you do that, you at least have the specs. Pinterest is the last, and that's very simple. Again, it's just this avatar is really your only customization option. To do that, I believe you go up here and under settings, your profile, you can upload an image, or I have Pinterest connected to my Facebook and connected to my Twitter. And this is kind of like what you were asking about with Flickr. Pinterest has the same thing. You can connect it to your Facebook, you can connect it to Twitter, and you can set it to tweet, for example, automatically when you upload a pin. I don't think I have it tweet automatically, but when you do upload a pin, you still have the option to say tweet this out. And that's what I prefer, because I don't want everything to be so automated that I might even forget that everything's going to Twitter, and I'm uploading 100 pins and forgetting that I'm tweeting all of them. So, any questions now that we've gone through this incredibly exciting presentation? I hope it was at least useful.
It's great.
Never promised it would be exciting.
Question's very basic, but so I don't know. Back to Facebook. So I have a personal profile before I joined the company I'm with. There seem to be limitations on what I can do as a company or like a page profile. In terms of I can only like other organizations, not people. For example, and the way I've sort of worked around it is I created sort of a dummy person in my company to be the administrator. Is that the way people,
You're not supposed to do that, and I don't recommend to do that, but I know you're not the first person to do that. If I'm going to use my page as... See, I personally, I don't think I've ever tried to like a personal page as a page. So I'm using this as a Laura right now, and I'm going to go to, I'm just going to type in, oh, it's not letting me, because I'm as a Laura, it's not going to give me my friends when I type in up here.
Right.
So I'm going to go to this guy's page, Christian Quippy, and I'm going to see, so I guess you cannot like an individual page. Or friend, well, you can't, I'm sorry, actually, you can't like an individual profile page to begin with.
Right.
But you can't friend someone as a page. But I should be able to, no, on his page I can't even post an update, but that's his personal settings. I'm not 100% sure on this because I've never tried to do this, or maybe I have, but I believe that's his personal privacy settings that prevents me as a page from posting on his account.
If you're a business page, an individual has to like you.
Right.
Right. You can't go and like an individual person.
Right.
Which prevents
There's no way, even as a person,
everyone.
you can't
Exactly.
like
You
another
have to
person.
make them get to you. Yeah.
So I have my settings differently. So I'm as a Laura, and I can go onto my page and see all of my content. It doesn't look like I can like the content though, and I don't know if that's a setting. One thing that gets so confusing about Facebook is the privacy settings. I mean, have you ever seen the privacy settings in Facebook? I'll show you what they look like. Alright, you can choose, first of all, any of these several categories, but I'm going to go into how I connect, and just 3 different options here. Who can look you up using the email address, who can send you friend requests, who can send friend messages, timeline and tagging has all of these settings, ads, apps, and websites has specific settings for your different ads, apps, and websites.
So, John, you manage the Bluefield Corps page?
I do manage, right.
So how do you, I manage the Imagine Pittsburgh, which is sort of a similar, like we're a nonprofit trying to get words out. You know, you get the word out about Pittsburgh, but so how do you interact for Bloomfield with other people on Facebook specifically? Or do you really just use it kind of as a broadcasting tool?
Well, you want to start using it as a broadcasting tool, but you don't ever want to just limit it to a broadcasting tool, because assume that if you put content online, that people will respond to it and interact with it. What I found with Bloomfield is that our posts from the blog, which are still in a friendly, personal blog voice, still tend to have less interaction than when our executive director or our Main Streets manager just goes on and posts something personal. Or not personal, but just post directly to Facebook. Like, this wasn't a post from the blog, this was just thanking some people for coming out for this demonstration. And then Hutch, who I think he might be here today, commented, that's a lot of leftists on one street. Hutch has a conservative podcast. But yeah, for some reason, and I don't know the reason why, we do have more interaction. Like here, well, we have interaction on this because it's an image. And so 13 people liked it, 2 people commented on it. But even if I were to post this as a blog post and still have the image, like here, I thanked the volunteers and I had a very similar image. I mean, there's no dog in this image, but it's still, a very similar image. We have only 4 people like it and less comments on it. So I don't know if that has to do with Facebook's algorithm and how many people are seeing this, or 224 people saw that versus, let's see, only 63 people saw this post. That's part of it, but I think
people don't want to leave. They don't want to go. They may feel that they have to go
Right.
check out your blog, and they don't want to leave.
That might be true too. They don't want to click away. And I also think that if it's a blog post, it still looks a little more official, whereas this looks very personal and something that you can personally interact with.
Sure.
Can you see how many, when you said your director just posted a text, like a text thank you or litigate or whatever it was down below, how many compared to like the photo? If you got a lot more for the photo compared to his.
About the same amount of people saw that. 261 people saw that, and 224 people saw this.
That's really interesting. So like we have a blog that auto posts to Facebook. And right now we're focusing a lot more on Twitter, but it seems like it might be worth it for us to get rid of the auto posting and just actually post our blog post directly to Facebook.
Right.
In terms of people sort of receiving it in a different way.
Sure, because you also have to find out, like, looking at your insights when, you're getting the most traffic.
Right.
I don't know, what did they tell us about the time, the dates and times?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 1 to 4.
1 to 4, like the best times to post on
Oh, it's
Facebook.
Facebook, really?
That's in general, but you definitely want to tweak that for your own audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like also there's a lot that goes into how many people are seeing your Facebook posts. I mean, there's a lot of concern out there that people are posting all these posts and it's not getting to their likers. So it's I don't know. I think it's very unfair for business pages, especially small business pages, the way that Facebook is.
Yeah, that's why I think I've not engaged in it too much because it's so cumbersome.
Yeah, well, it just don't give up, because, I mean, personally, I get, like, I have a bigger following on Facebook than I do Twitter, but I've worked real hard on Facebook.
And one thing you can do, though, and I would recommend doing this, we're doing this just because that's kind of how our organization works. I take care of the blog and the more official postings, and oftentimes they're written by our managed use managers. She'll send it to me, I'll edit it, I'll add a photo, crop the photo, blah, blah, post it to the blog, then it goes to Facebook. But then I don't even know what she's doing here until I see it, on Facebook. Oh, Terry posted something, right? I assume it's her because I think we're the only two that are actually managing the account right now. That's just done accidentally, but that's a good tactic. You might want to have one person doing the more official post and then someone else who has a less official voice or who interacts with your constituents better to, you can even take that same picture and just repost it as a photo and then put a personal note to it. And one option too, here Terry posted as Bloomfield Development Corporation. She could have easily just posted as herself as well. Either way it would have worked, and you could even do some A/B testing to see what people tend to interact with better, whether it's you personally or the organization.
She could have gone on her Facebook page and posted to your
No,
page.
well, she could have posted it on our Facebook page, on the Bloomfield Development Corporation's Facebook page as herself. And the way you do that, Facebook just changed that as well. If you've been used to going over here and choosing, use Facebook as yourself, use Facebook as a page,
Right.
Google has now added this voice bar where when you are on a page that you are an admin of, you have this bar up here that says you are posting, commenting, and liking as Bloomfield Development Corporation, James and John Carman. And I found that out yesterday when I went to comment on a Bloomfield post. I was logged in, I was using Facebook as myself, and I went to comment and it commented as the BDC. And I didn't realize I have to now go up there because Facebook changed something yet again.
It's almost embarrassing when you do that.
Oh, it was super embarrassing
I've done
because-
that many times,
Yeah.
because, well, it's a long story, but, sometimes you don't want to comment certain things. Yeah.
You don't want the business commenting on it.
Right.
Well, I was about to read for Podcamp in 5 minutes, and I'm supposed to be going to Podcamp to teach people how to do this stuff, and I can't comment as myself. I can't figure out how to do it, and I'm not leaving to go to Podcamp until I figure out how to do this.
When you are back to the pictures of like the young woman with the dog.
Right.
If you're a business, can you tag people in photos? Back to your question about, if you can't like individual people, can you tag individual people and then it'll show up on their Facebook page that Bloomfield Development Corp or whoever tagged them in a picture?
Yes.
I know that
I don't know who any
can
people are,
tag people
but I could.
if they comment on your post.
If they comment on it? So maybe if that person liked your page already or has already
If she
commented.
liked your page, let's say you're in that picture and you like my page and you said, oh, look how funny I look. Then he could say at Jess Trump, you don't look funny, you look awesome. And then it went
Or
back
I
to you.
totally agree with
Well, let me just
So that might
double
be
check
But
that
to
because,
tag, I don't.
okay, now I'm back to Bloomfield Development Corporation.
Yeah, even me too. I think you can tag other business.
Alright, yeah, I just did that as the Bloomfield
But
Development
he's
Corporation.
already liked Bloomfield Development Corp.
I assume he has because he does a lot with us, but I don't know for certain that he has.
But it populated.
Well, it put his name up there. Oh, no, see, it says tagged in this photo by
By
John
you.
Carman. So I don't know if you can tag someone as a page, but you can tag someone within one of your pages. Let's do it this way. Let's try that again. Maybe there's someone else that I know in one of these pictures. Because it would be super awkward if there wasn't. I'm just going to tag this restaurant as, I'm going to tag that little dog as me. Or Norm. I'm going to tag that as Norm Wheelsman. Okay, the problem is Unless Norm doesn't like the page.
So it's people that have already liked the page, maybe.
Well,
Already
it
liked
seems
the
to be
business.
like it. I can bring up all these people who I don't think are any people that like the page. It just isn't bringing up. I mean, I'm pretty sure I spelled Norm's name right, and it's not. I mean, it's a very unique name.
Must be his privacy setting.
It could be his privacy.
Yeah,
setting.
yeah, you can't
Although-
tag.
Yeah, although wouldn't it ask?
I'm not
for
even finding
approval, or is
myself.
there an approval
And I like the
as well?
page, and I'm an admin of the page. So when I type in my own name, I'm getting all these other John Carmans. It's just a really bad search, apparently. So while you can do it, it's much easier to tag as yourself.
I just wonder if that would get around if you had individual people tagged
Right.
in the photo. Or maybe they have to go in and tag themselves. I don't know.
I guess some people allow you to tag them wherever others,
And others
you have to
don't.
approve, and then maybe others it's blocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to give rules for Facebook because there's so many exceptions to everything. Like you said, it could be its privacy settings. You know, everyone's privacy settings are so different that sometimes something will work, and you won't realize that it doesn't work for everyone. So it's actually 3 minutes over time, so it is lunchtime now. If anyone has any other questions, remember that the URL is avenuedesignstudios.com/cheat, and I'll just keep that up there. I'll just use that to update, and I'll use that as my own personal cheat sheet, so it should be updated as things change.